Okay, welcome to Understanding Gen Z. I appreciate you being here. Today, I'm going to share some characteristics that will help us understand Gen Z better, and we'll talk about how to use that information to customize our financial counseling strategies. My name is Kathy Seninger, and I am an AFC candidate. I want to tell you a little bit why was interested in this topic. When I would talk to friends about what I was doing, trying to be an AFC, um, almost always it would come up that they would say, "Oh, my young adult child could really use some counseling." So I started to think, well, what would be different about counseling that age group than counseling another age group? That started me on this journey. So there are different views on what the actual age of Gen Z is, but in general, it's roughly those who were born between 1997 and 2013. So they are between the ages of 12 and 27. For my study, I focused on just post-high school, so 18 to 27. The things that identify different generations are usually specific world events, technology advances, and social developments. Their shared age and experiences shape a distinct worldview. I have a little bit of a disclaimer that I want to make before we start. I want to make sure that the information I'm sharing is used and received as intended. Whenever we discuss large groups, it's almost unavoidable to make generalizations, which lead to stereotyping. It's challenging to apply broad cultural trends to everyone in a generation, since individual experiences vary widely. There may even be conflicting trends within the same generation, reflecting the diversity of people's lives. But with that in mind, studying generations can still give us valuable insights. Our strength as financial counselors lies in the ability to see our clients as individuals and understand their unique stories. My hope is that the ideas presented here will help you leverage generational insights to enhance your practice, and it is not intended to reinforce labels and stereotypes. I want you to take a minute and think about what you know about Gen Z. Who do you know that is in this age group? I don't know if we have anyone in the audience that's in this age group, but maybe you can chime in on some of these ideas and tell us if they feel accurate to you. What have you observed about their financial habits and perspectives? Are there any stereotypes or labels that you've heard? I'd like it if everyone could take a minute and put some words that come up in the chat. Oh, good. Darcy, maybe you can help us out in this. Social media. I like that. Dedicated, innovative. There's a lot about technology. Impulsive thinkers. Okay, thank you for inclusive. Great, great. More casual, attention span. Great, thank you. Thank you for all of that. Let's see how what you think is compares to what the research says. Most of the information I'm sharing today came from the following sources. I also gathered some informal study groups, real people to talk to kind of see if their experience was the same as what I was studying. After I built these slides just this week, I came across a really good book. It's called Z Economy by Jason Dorsey and Denise Villa. It's about how Gen Z will change the future of business. Jason Dorsey also has information on YouTube. So if you want to get more information, you can check that out. A first characteristic that we'll discuss is that diversity and inclusion are core values for Gen Z. I recognize that these values are important to people of all ages. They have resonated with people for previous generations, but each generation has unique ways of prioritizing and expressing them. And that's what we want to understand in order to serve them better. Emphasis on diversity, equality, and inclusion is part of a broader societal shift that each generation has contributed to. Individuals who are Gen Z are more likely than previous generations to interact with people from backgrounds that are different from their own. This is what research tells us. They are also more likely to support inclusive policies and practices. They're highly aware of how various aspects of their identity, things like race and gender and sexuality, how that intersects and how that impacts their experience and perspective. So what strategies can we focus on in our practice if we know that diversity and inclusion are core characteristics? We can work on being culturally competent. This refers to the ability to understand, communicate with, and effectively interact with people across cultures. It also involves being aware of our own cultural lens and bias. Key components of cultural awareness are awareness, cultural competence, are awareness, curiosity, knowledge, skills, and attitude. Culture is complex, and it's impossible to know everything about someone else's lived experience. It's more about being open to learning and listening. Some of the things that we can do are, let me mention these webinars that are on the AFC website. There were also a lot of breakout sessions and information at last year's symposium. Another thing we can do is to make sure we have a welcoming space, whether that's physical or virtual. This includes things like making sure your counseling space is accessible and comfortable for all body types, asking about preferred pronouns, using multilingual signs if appropriate, and using inclusive decor and resource materials. I want you to take a minute and think about your own practice and think if there's something you could change or add that would make it more inclusive. If you have some good ideas, please feel free to share in the chat for the benefit of everyone else. Another characteristic that was mentioned is that they are digital natives, meaning most of them grew up with technology and they don't remember a time without it. If you want to work with young adults, you want to have a robust online presence. Be familiar with and leverage online platforms and tools. The top 3 platforms that Gen Z uses currently for information are Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. It's important to educate your clients on how they can verify and fact check the things that they are going to see online. Point them to reliable websites so they can compare information. Help them learn how to question and look for bias or monetary gain from the person who is posting. Think about what kind of tools you will use that would be effective. There are thousands of financial apps. These are just a few of the commonly used. Add more in the chat if you know of some. Find out what apps and platforms your client uses and have discussions about some of the common pitfalls. Data sharing, security practices, hidden fees, the danger of buy now and pay later apps, and bad actors who are using legitimate apps for financial fraud. Apple Pay, Apple Cash. Yeah, there's so many. PayPal. And I feel like there's new ones coming all the time. One really good resource I want to mention is if you haven't already signed up for getting notifications from CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, they have really good timely information about new things that are happening. For example, in the last few weeks, there were legal actions taken against Zelle and Cash App because they have gaps in their security and they're not addressing when a customer comes to them to address lost money or security things that they're not addressing those. So stay up to date on what's happening. Find out who they're following. There are more than 100,000 accounts sharing financial advice. There's actually a lot of good information out there, but as you know, anyone can present themselves as an expert, and there's a lot of garbage on the internet. The positive of influencers is that they're easily accessible. They have great engagement. They use real life examples and they're entertaining. They build community and they can give up-to-date information. The negatives are that some people are giving outright false information. A lot of them have a hidden bias or sponsorship trying to guide you to certain financial products. Another is that they give one size fits all advice, so there's no nuance. Another negative is that there's an overemphasis on quick gains rather than an emphasis on fundamentals. Here are some of the typical red flags that you already know to warn your clients about. They've just been repackaged in different forms to appeal to Gen Z. Here's the best thing you can do with your money, or the promotion of obscure stocks, which lack transparency and information. They have a low trading volume, so they are more susceptible to price manipulation. I think we've seen that a lot over the last couple of years. There's a pressure to act now. There's a fear, promoting a fear of missing out. Help your clients know how to protect themselves against financial fraud. According to the FTC, the top threats for this age group right now are job scams, online shopping fraud, and bogus cryptocurrency investment opportunities. Another interesting thing to keep your eye on is online betting. It's exploded in the last few years. That would be something to ask your clients about. A third characteristic is that they have a high expectation for personalization. They want products, services, and experiences that are tailored to them. In your initial assessment, you can use assessment tools to understand your client's unique money, personality, and history. As with any client, attentive listening, authenticity, and using a client-centered approach is always important. You may need to make adjustments frequently. 18 to 26 can be an age for really big changes, things like graduation, new relationships, new jobs, moving locations. All of these and sudden economic factors could bring a change in priorities and goals. We can make sure our client's financial plan changes with them. It will be important to use a communication mode that they prefer. Provide proactive customer service if there are any concerns or questions. Personalization could be the difference between the client choosing you and choosing someone else. As a group, they are collaborative and community-oriented. Their social experience is very important. All but one of my study group said that they would prefer to meet in person rather than virtually if they're given the option. They value teamwork, collective effort, input from their peers, and social connections, both online and offline. These strategies can be more difficult to implement if you're working with clients one-on-one. Be able to point them to some ways they can have group experiences and community engagement. If you have several clients in this age group, you could provide workshops or forums. You can also encourage them to participate in other online literacy communities, peer discussions, and group projects. Again, be able to direct them to good information in this area. The incidence of mental health issues is higher in this population than it has been for any previous generation at this particular age. It's important to stay informed about mental health issues and common challenges faced by young adults and understand how these issues impact financial decisions. The good news is that those who are Gen Z are much more likely to talk about mental health and much more likely to seek treatment. Obviously, these applications will apply to clients of all ages. Just a reminder, as counselors, we have a duty to warn and duty to protect. It arises when a client expresses an explicit threat to cause harm to their self or to others. Please look at Standard of Practice 9. I also want to highlight an article that Andy wrote entitled Ethics and Confidentiality. It's in the Standard newsletter that you can access on the AFC PB website. Andy, do you have anything you want to add about that?
No, I went down a good rabbit hole, so I'll post the link in the chat.
Okay, thank you. A second thing to ensure is that you're operating within a framework of empathy, compassion, and patience that matches the needs of the client. We can also be aware of overwhelm and guide our clients in setting realistic goals and breaking things down into very small action items that feel doable to them. Focus on client-centered actions, empowering them to be the experts in their own lives. One of the most important things we can do is to know our own limits. A skilled financial counselor will understand that money issues often intersect with emotional and mental health challenges. If a client struggles with finances and it seems it's rooted in deeper issues like anxiety, depression, compulsive spending, or trauma, it can be beyond our scope to fully address these issues. Build a mental health practitioner referral network so that you are always acting in the client's best interest and you know where to direct them. If you have anything you'd like to add to this list, please add it to the chat. Every generation has faced unique economic challenges as they've come into adulthood. Gen Z has unprecedented access to global news and information, which can heighten their awareness of economic volatility and challenges. Constant exposure to economic crisis, political instability, and environmental concerns can amplify their sense of economic uncertainty and powerlessness. If they compare their economic prospects to those of previous generations, they might feel like those generations had more opportunity for stable employment, home ownership, and access to affordable education. Rapid technology advances and shifting social norms can create both opportunities and uncertainties. AI, gig economy, and remote work are reshaping traditional employment, which brings both flexibility and instability. One of the best ways that we can address this is through financial education so that they feel better equipped to participate and understand the financial world. Their self-identified biggest concerns right now are job security, housing, and how to pay for college. One of the questions I asked my focus group was, where have you learned about money? There were kind of four themes that they answered. One was parents. Most were positive, though a few said that they learned what not to do from their parents. Secondly was high school financial literacy, and it ranged from really good to really lame to non-existent. Not every state in the US has this as a requirement, so you might find out from them what they've already learned through that. Thirdly was they learned through their personal experience. They had jobs and they learned by using their money and even making mistakes. And fourth, they went online for information and tutorials. The next question I asked is, what have you learned from older generations? Unanimously, they said basics of money management, things like how to open a bank account, how to pay for things, the difference between a credit card and a debit card, things like that. There was a heavy emphasis on learning to save and not going into debt. Another emphasis that they felt like their parents and older generations really emphasized putting in effort and working hard to reach goals. A lot of them talked about money conversations, and this is a generalization, but they seemed to, those with parents on the younger end, said they learned to have healthy conversations, and those with parents on the older end said that they were less transparent and they didn't talk about details. And as young adults, they were hoping to do differently in their own relationships. A last question I asked them was, what do you want older generations to know about you? There were a few themes. One of these is that there are multiple paths and ways to have a successful career that might look different than what older generations are used to. A second one was really interesting about there are jobs and careers that are real, even if older people don't understand what they are. things like all the jobs in AI prompting, things like that, influencers, things like that, that for older generations were not even real jobs. A third thing was a lot of them felt like they were judged as being lazy. And so they wanted people to know that they work hard. They just feel like they're at a little bit of a disadvantage. I have some videos of a few Gen Z responses in their words.
It's not that we're lazy and not wanting to work hard. It's that it's not easy to balance that traditional route with school, living away from home. You kind of have to live at home or pick to work full time and not do.
Okay, so I think it's hard because older generations are used to having like a straight line path to like making the like achieving their common goal. Whereas nowadays, I feel like there's lots of different pathways you can take to get where you want to be and like have the job you want to be. And I think that can be like hard for older generations to grasp that there's not just like one right way to do things nowadays. Like you can reach your goals in lots of different pathways.
Think that some of the perceived laziness about our generation is just because of the timeline of like an older generation is a lot faster than a newer generation due to like housing costs or other things that are just way more difficult now. And I think that when you see like someone who's our generation's doing things a lot slower or not getting to their goals and like the same pace that an older generation would, it just be like seen as they're lazy and they aren't working hard enough for it.
I think I cut that first slide off, that first video off prematurely, but he talked about he's in his first year of college, and he said people ask me why I still live at home, but then on the other hand, they are telling me not to take out student loans, and he kind of says there's not really a way to do both of those things. I learned some new vocabulary words. These are from a Gen Z website. They're not my own. Interesting. Soft saving is the future feels uncertain. So an individual might focus on, rather than saving money traditionally, spending that money on experiences and goods that will bring personal growth and self-care. They will emphasize that over long-term planning because they feel like their future is uncertain. The young adults I talk to, none of them are planning on using Social Security. Another one was doom spending, similar to doom scrolling. It's a coping mechanism, making impulse purchases to alleviate stress and anxiety. Another was loud budgeting. So this would be, instead of someone saying something like, I don't have enough money to go to lunch, someone would say, I'm choosing not to spend money on having lunch with you because you just complain the whole time. And that's not very enjoyable for me. So, not just budgeting for budgeting's sake, but being discriminating about how they're spending their money. The last one was an underconsumption core. This is using what you have instead of buying new or not throwing things out. I think this is one of those cases where there's a lot of conflict within this generation because there is a big emphasis on consumption. So some of them are choosing to go a different route. I think for a lot of us, it would just be normal consumption, this using what you have and not feeling like you have to buy new things. Soft saving is rather than putting money in a savings account, it's putting money towards things that they feel like will bring them personal growth or having good experiences. So we've talked about the who and the what, but let's talk about why. Why does knowing about Gen Z matter? There are almost 70 million people that fall into this category in the US. They're a growing client base, they're an emerging segment of the workforce, and they're beginning to make significant financial decisions. I am going to try and run through these last slides because I want to have a little bit of time to share at the end. But you can see here, I've listed some of the reasons why, again, why it's important. Having a deeper understanding of Gen Z's unique perspectives and preferences can enable you to build a stronger rapport and greater trust with clients in this generation. If you can learn to adapt your approach to Gen Z's communication styles and digital habits, it can help your overall counseling techniques, making you more versatile and effective with a broader range of clients. By understanding what matters to Gen Z, you can position yourself as a forward-thinking counselor and anticipate trends and financial needs. Engaging Gen Z effectively can lead to lasting relationships and help you grow your professional network. For the general population, addressing Gen Z's specific challenges empowers them to make informed decisions, which reduces long-term societal financial burdens. Encouraging sound financial habits in Gen Z creates ripple effects, as their improved financial well-being will influence families, workplaces, and communities. Strategies you develop for Gen Z, such as leveraging technology and inclusivity, can improve accessible and effective for all clients, fostering a more equitable financial landscape. And lastly, our world will be shaped by Gen Z, what Gen Z brings to it. Our economy will be shaped and changed. If you go back to the book that I talked about, Z Economy, he talks a lot about how business is changing, economy is changing because of some of these characteristics of Gen Z. In the last few minutes, I would love to know if you want to come off mute, if you have anything you'd like to share, not just about Gen Z, but maybe you've learned to understand the general generational characteristics of your clients. And if you've been able to customize, knowing that, customize and change your practice, I'd love to know how you've done that. And again, thank you for participating.
Great job, Kathy. Any questions, any comments, everybody? You had lots of comments throughout, lots of people sharing.
Yeah.
It's great, Kathy.
I was trying to keep track, but I'm not a multitasker, so I can. Thank you so much for all of your input.